Keanu, what are your most expensive cars?
Let's see. The Ferrari tops the list, about $1.5 million. It's fast, rare, and a little bit dramatic. Then there's the Bugatti Veyron Grand Sport Vitesse, roughly 1.2.
Keanu Reeves flew to England with a damaged Porsche, and nobody outside that Leicester garage knew it happened until the automotive world started connecting the dots. What he brought, who he trusted, and why 3 shops in Los Angeles couldn't do what one mechanic in the English Midlands pulled off in 6 weeks tells you everything about what Mat Armstrong has quietly become in the car world and what that means for the manufacturers who have spent the last year trying to shut him down. Mat Armstrong's garage in Leicester has logged nearly 10 million subscribers and over 1 billion views on YouTube, not because the building is impressive or the equipment is specialized, but because of a single operating principle the man has followed since day one. Show everything, hide nothing, and never cut corners on what actually matters. That discipline built an audience over a decade, and by January 2026, it had turned his workshop into one of the most watched automotive spaces on the planet. The project running at that time was the one that changed everything about how the industry sees him. A crashed Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport had come up at a salvage auction in the United States in October 2025, one of just 60 ever produced, with the front end caved in, airbags deployed, carbon fiber shredded, and the frame twisted out of alignment. Bugatti had assessed it, declared it a total loss, and locked the car's VIN number so no authorized dealer could supply replacement parts. The original owner, Alex Gonzalez, bought it back at auction for around $1.9 million and called the one person he believed could actually bring it back. Mat bought the wreck and began filming, and the rebuild series that followed became one of the most watched automotive projects in YouTube history. That series is also what brought Keanu Reeves to Leicester. He had been following the channel for months, watching the Chiron come back piece by piece, watching Mat refuse to stop when Bugatti refused to cooperate, watching a man in a regular workshop take on a challenge that the manufacturer's own CEO had publicly said was impossible for anyone outside an official Bugatti facility. And when Keanu's 993 generation Porsche 911 sustained front-end damage in Los Angeles in late 2025, the decision about where to take it came quickly. He visited 3 shops in Los Angeles first. The assessments were technically competent. The damage wasn't beyond any of them. But none of those shops treated the car the way Keanu needed it to be treated, because to them it was a Porsche 911 belonging to a famous client, and to Keanu it was 2 decades of his actual life sitting in front of them. He commissioned that 911 Carrera S through Porsche's exclusive manufacture division, had it modified to his personal specifications, assigned it a 12 o'clock marker on the steering wheel normally reserved for GT3 race cars, gave it a black anodized interior trim, and named it the Sled. That car appeared on the set of John Wick. When none of the Los Angeles shops felt right, he flew to England. On a weekday evening in January 2026, headlights swept across the workshop doors and a black Porsche 911 rolled into the yard at Mat's garage. The team had already gone home. Mat was alone when the driver stepped out, and no introduction was necessary. Keanu walked in, looked at the Bugatti Chiron sitting in mid-rebuild for a moment, then turned and explained exactly what had happened to the Sled. He described the damage, the 3 previous shops, what each of them had offered, and what none of them had understood. He wanted the car returned to its original commissioned specification, not upgraded, not modernized, just restored to precisely what it had been before the accident. Mat understood that immediately, because it is the same philosophy behind every significant project that has come through that garage. To understand why a star of Keanu's standing flew across an ocean to find the right mechanic, it helps to understand who Keanu Reeves actually is when the cameras aren't pointed at him. His first car was a 1964 Volvo 122 in vintage green that he bought at 17 and nicknamed Dumpy, an honestly named vehicle with 86 horsepower, a top speed of 92 miles per hour, and almost nothing else going for it. He drove that car to Los Angeles in 1985 when he arrived to start his career, and multiple sources indicate it still sits in his collection today, parked alongside the Ferrari LaFerrari, worth approximately $3 million, and the Bugatti Veyron, worth roughly $1.2 million. The man who kept a car called Dumpy next to a LaFerrari was never collecting for status. He just genuinely loves driving. That relationship with machines deepened in 1987 on a film set in Munich, where a woman on a Kawasaki Enduro caught his attention and taught him to ride. By the time he landed back in Los Angeles, he owned his first motorcycle, and the obsession never stopped. In 2011, he co-founded Arch Motorcycle with builder Gard Hollinger, a genuine manufacturing company producing hand-built performance cruisers in Los Angeles, with his personal Harley-Davidson serving as the prototype for their flagship KRGT1 model. He also enrolled in Porsche's official driving experience program and won a celebrity race in California in 2009. None of those details come from publicists. They come from what he actually did with his time and his money when nobody was watching. So when the sled came back wrong in 3 different shops, the response wasn't surprising. He flew to Leicester. He walked into a garage where the most complex automotive rebuild on YouTube was already underway, and he handed the car he'd owned for over 20 years to a man he had never met in person until that evening. What happened over the following 6 weeks in that Leicester garage was that Mat Armstrong ran 2 of the most significant automotive projects in the world at the same time. The front-end damage on the sled turned out to be more extensive once the car was opened up, which is almost always true of serious restoration work. The full picture only reveals itself once you start taking things apart. The Porsche finished on a Tuesday morning in March 2026, and the front-end restoration was invisible. That word is used deliberately, because bodywork done properly leaves no evidence that anything ever happened. The paint matched with the accuracy that only patience produces, the kind most shops don't carry. The air-cooled 3.6-litre flat-six engine that defines the 993 generation ran with the mechanical precision of a car fresh from the factory floor. The black anodized interior trim Keanu had commissioned through manufacture was cleaned, treated, and preserved exactly as specified, and the 12 o'clock steering wheel marker sat exactly where it had always been. Keanu arrived the following morning alone. He walked around the car slowly, got down to examine the front end where the damage had been, then stood and looked at Mat. Whatever those 2 men said to each other in that garage on that morning in Leicester has not been reported, and it didn't need to be. The sled was back to what it was before the accident, restored by someone who understood the difference between fixing a famous person's car and taking care of something that actually matters to a human being. The Bugatti situation was its own separate battle running in parallel, and that one carried stakes that went well beyond a single car. When the Chiron hit whatever it collided with, the impact drove the engine forward hard enough to crack the cast aluminum engine mount support, the component that holds the entire powertrain in precise alignment. Getting to it required splitting the car in half, a process Bugatti's CEO Mate Rimac had publicly stated could only be performed at an official Bugatti facility with the right equipment and factory-trained specialists. Rimac said this confidently and completely unaware of what it was about to set in motion. Mat and his fabricator Bob split the car using standard tools. Bob then replicated the broken engine mount support entirely by hand, with no blueprint, no CAD files, and no 3D scan of the original part to work from, producing a component that included the correct mounting points and threads and bolted directly to the chassis legs. Mat sourced replacement airbags from an Audi A3 and found they were fully compatible with the Bugatti system. The interior was completely retrimmed by E3 Customs, restored in the same white and purple exterior theme. And when the time came to find out whether the W16 engine would fire after everything it had been through, including being driven briefly without coolant before the car was written off, the answer came back clearly. The engine started. One of 60 Chiron Persport power plants in existence came back to life in a Leicester workshop, in a car whose VIN had been locked, whose parts had been withheld, and whose manufacturer had declared it dead. Mat then drove it. That detail matters more than almost anything else in this story because Bugatti's engineers had assessed this exact car, run the numbers, confirmed the loss, and withheld the parts specifically to prevent further work on it. The same car rolled out of the workshop and onto a public road. The Ferrari 296 GTB rebuild that followed the Chiron attracted the same response from Ferrari that Bugatti had delivered, parts supplied initially and then cut off without explanation, and the car's software locked remotely. Two of the most exclusive automotive brands in the world had now moved to shut down projects running in the same Leicester garage within months of each other. The reason was identical both times. Showing the inside of these cars on camera, clearly and honestly, makes the mythology those brands sell considerably harder to maintain. Mat's audience grew with every manufacturer confrontation. Every refusal to supply parts produced more views than the parts themselves could have been worth to anyone. Every public statement from a CEO introduced Mat Armstrong to a new audience that had never searched for automotive content before. Bugatti attempted to end a YouTube channel and instead made it unmissable. What the Keanu Reeves visit added to this story is something the manufacturers can't address with a locked VIN or a parts embargo. When the people who can actually afford these cars start asking the same questions Mat Armstrong has been raising from a workshop in Leicester, the conversation shifts entirely. A billion-dollar brand can withhold components from a private mechanic. It cannot withhold credibility from someone who already has it. The sled is back on the road. The Chiron is running. The Ferrari rebuild continues, and the garage in Leicester keeps filming.